Okay, this is the House Appropriations Committee. It is still Friday, January 23rd, 2026. It's about 3:15, and we are waiting to hear on the Section 8 language. Let's council's on their way over, but in the meantime, if you want to pick up the gray out sheet that we talked about yesterday, there's a few more things that we just need to check off, and I'm looking at the second page. Did we agree on the Dale grants? I'm at the top. The OEO we're changing. Dave said yes. Dave said yes on 61. And we've agreed on 59 with the new numbers. So those two we can close out. 61 we can close out. And then when we get down to the line 76 to 84, this is where the purple things were that the governor proposed in the new. And you'll see that I think we've agreed to keep the accountability courts, but we are not going to do the Read Vermont program.
Yep.
Okay, and then the pension is in there as well. So that's that section. The next section in transfers, we have not talked about the criminal history records check fund. Anyway, we were thinking about whether we should leave that underfund in deficit, and we've agreed to not leave it in deficit. However, I've asked Grady to draft language about this to have them come back with like a plan of how they're going to fix this so they're not always in deficit. Or how to, yes. So he's working on that, so you won't be surprised when you see that language I've asked. Okay. And then we already agreed to not do the pilot special fund. That was the 67,000, whatever, general fund. I think that's everything on that back page.
The only thing that on my thing doesn't check was 301 global commitment.
That's right. That's the very last thing. And that'll be based on all the other things we've done, and we've done some more stuff today, and they'll plug the number for us.
And what about line 68 about the well path invoices?
Yes, that got closed out yesterday.
Question?
Yes, Lynn.
Okay, so you want to take the criminal history records check fund and not keep it in deficit, you want to.
No, we're gonna pay it.
We're gonna pay it.
Pay it, so we're
leaving it as is.
as is.
If we wanted to keep it in deficit, we'd have snagged that 1.06 million and used it for something else. But we're letting them, we're gonna backfill it,
Plan.
but we want to plan. We don't want to keep doing this.
Right, and then the pilot, we just did the pilot special fund stuff that we just.
Right, so this was we had agreed yesterday, this was the AOT not having to pay back the general fund of $67,000.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Close that out.
We're closing that out, but the other pilot, so if we go to,
Are we doing all that other stuff in the pilot that you recommended that, because we have a.
yes, there's one more thing that's on when Adam's spreadsheet, when he came in.
Yes.
So Adam's spreadsheet has all the details of global commitment. Emily, do we have to go and look at all of those things? Did Emily disappear? Do we have to look at every one of those global commitment things on here, or did we, because if we pass them, we're okay?
The individual agreements.
Yeah. We need to just look at that again? Do you need something from us on that?
Here's the changes made for that effect line 27.301.
Right, so if we checked off, check this, I guess we did. If we checked off the big ones, then all the little things are in there, and I think we've checked off all of these things.
We're still looking at the that was the inspection for grade out check boxes.
The which?
I was sidebars there. I apologize.
We're looking at Gretchen's,
Oh,
which shows,
we still have special fund transfers inspection.
okay, yeah, so there's one of the things that was on here. Is that on the last page?
The original one.
Okay, so on page 8 of Adam's spreadsheet, on the very back page, we closed out the one at the top. We agreed that the AOT did not need to pay back the 67,761. But we did not talk about, and this, sorry, it's my fault, the one below it, the pilot special fund, whether AOT from the T fund needs to pay back. And that's 292,000. They're still in deficit. When Chris presented the pilot money this morning, he assumed that we were not making the T fund pay this back, and they were still fine. So I just assume not make them pay it back. Same argument.
The 292.
So 292. So we will not, so we would not do that transaction. Okay? A little break where we can. Okay. And I think that was everything on the big list. Is there anything else anybody? We just did it, and I mentioned that Grady's doing language to have a plan. Okay, so is there anything else that any of you guys at JFO think we're missing? I'm not hearing it. If you want to go do whatever you need to do, I mean, stay here. Hopefully people are doing whatever they need to do. And Cameron is now here to talk about section 8. So we're going to switch that up. Cameron, thanks for waiting as we finish those pieces up. Come take a seat at the table. Let's see. And Autumn is handing out copies for those who want it. Thank you. I got it. Thanks.
Madam Chair, would you like me to bring it up on the screen, or are you okay with the handout?
Well, there may be people who want to see it. Mike Nigro, did you post this already? It's posted, Mike, so you should be able to find it on our web. You got it? Okay, good. All right. So if you don't mind putting it up on the screen, that would be great, because then our viewing audience likes to see where we are. So
I will simply need the Zoom link. My apologies. Give me just a minute.
it gives us a second to take a look at it. Oh, so you did some other language for us too.
Yes, ma'am. So as I wait for my computer to cooperate, for the record, Cameron Wood, Office of Legislative Counsel. I cover housing for you all, for the legislative branch. So this is kind of in my portfolio. What you have is some orphan language that I drafted up. So this is draft 2.1. As you will see, there's no bill number or anything like that. And there's no section numbers as well, because, this will be inserted into your Budget Adjustment Act, by your JFO team. But there are two sections to the bill. You will see the first is amending a section that you all passed last year in the budget. This was $50 million appropriated to the Agency of Administration to be transferred to the Emergency Board pursuant to 32 BSA 133 while the General Assembly is not in session. And you're adding some language here to specify that the General Assembly may designate these funds for other purposes, and notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, the funds can carry forward and remain available. So my understanding is, maybe, if you have any specific questions that may be better answered by JFO, but you've designated these funds to the Agency of Administration for this purpose. You're now back in session. We're amending that to say we can,
Now the General Assembly can take over.
Yes, ma'am. You can repurpose these designated funds as you need to or as you deem appropriate.
Okay. So Emily, do you want to say anything more about that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because what we understand is the intent is to use that the 50 million that's already appropriated is to designate some of that to be used for Section 8 housing funds. This just, like, it's lead into the next section, which is of that money appropriated, 5 million, or 5 million goes this purpose, and then we just caught that. That appropriation specifically would be subject to the carry forward language that's typically in the budget that allows the Secretary of Administration to determine what gets reverted at the end of the fiscal year. And it's figured that given you probably want that appropriation to live longer than this current fiscal year, at least for now, and
Yes.
it's clear that the intent is that it carry forward until you explicitly decide to revert back to the general.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. And I am now able to share my screen. There we go. So for those online, it was the first section on lines 1 through 8 that we were just discussing there. So now I'm going to move to the second section, which says of the amounts appropriated in that section, as we were just referencing to, 5 million shall be utilized by the Agency of Administration in fiscal year 26 for the purpose of assisting a housing authority to avoid termination of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Section 8 Housing Choice vouchers that would otherwise be lost as a result of reductions in federal funding. My understanding is the committee has some context here as to what the issue is, so I'm happy to try to answer any questions. Some of them may be best directed at the housing authorities themselves, but that's what the purpose of these $5 million are for. You have in the subsection B here, funding may be made available to a housing authority for one of the following purposes. 1, to maintain a current housing assistance payment in use, or to prevent the retirement of a housing assistance payment currently in use by the housing authority. So this is not to bring on new families or not to bring on new vouchers. This would be to maintain a current voucher that's in use, to prevent the retirement of a voucher that's in use because of reductions in federal funding. Or, now we're moving to the top of page 2, with prior approval from HUD to provide funding to a housing authority in order to prevent the termination of assistance to current housing choice voucher participants. So as I see it is you're maintaining someone who's currently has a voucher in play, or if they no longer need the voucher, instead of retiring it, you're able to keep it in use. Or under the 2, if the funding dries up and a voucher has to be terminated, you can use these monies with HUD approval to prevent the termination of that voucher that's in use. And then under C here, you have, you're requiring that any housing authority, so keep in mind, you have the state housing authority and then you have multiple municipal housing authorities. To request the funds, you're requiring that the commissioners of any housing authority have to vote to do so. And then under D, you have the Agency of Administration must establish procedures to validate that such expenditures conform with applicable HUD requirements and ensure access to the funds is made available to all housing authorities across the state. There was a concern, I put this in because, you don't want one housing authority just asking immediately and taking all of the money. You want there to be access to all housing authorities across the state to be able to access some of these dollars. Subdivision E is simply referencing housing authority, the same definition as they're defined, to make sure that we're including the locals and the state. And then a carry forward here, unexpended appropriations carry forward subsequent fiscal year remain available. So that's the language that you have. I'm happy to jump into any questions if there are any, or discuss some of the legal issues if you have any questions.
So we wanted to be sure that we weren't going to harm the housing authorities by doing this. And we wanted to be sure that the agency administration could sort of check on that. So that wasn't just, because we could mess things up in our language, but then they also have the ability to check on that. And I know that the housing authorities have been closest, particularly Vermont State Housing Authority has been very involved in this, and so they've seen the language and are comfortable with the language. The housing authorities have an attorney who looked at this, and I think probably will post the attorney letter, but the attorney basically said, this sounds good to me in legal language. Right, that's sort of what he said, right?
So just to be fair, it is not a 100% guarantee that these funds will be available for this purpose. There is some federal HUD guidance that may call into question the use of the funds in this purpose. But what you have is you have the language right there in D1. Before monies can be expended, Agency of Administration has to validate that any expenditure will comply. So I think you have the protection in that, Agency of Administration will validate this. But, there is still a question of whether it will be able to be used ultimately at the end of the day.
And if it turns out that it absolutely cannot be used, then we will revert it, right? We learned about reversions, we'll revert it and then reappropriate it as needed. That's what the plan is.
But if we don't do it, then we are most certainly going to lose vouchers.
Yeah.
And terminate folks. So, yeah.
So I feel good about the protections we have.
Yes, ma'am.
We also may learn more, as we know, the government is now passing budget things, maybe it looks like, and so maybe we'll know more by next week. But when it's in the Senate, they may learn more, and then there may be changes based on what we know as it goes through the Senate or committee of Congress. What?
Both senates.
Yes, that's true, both Senates, local and national, federal. So everybody good with this? We understand this?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you for jumping in. One of many people in our, who help us out and have to learn all this stuff and try to do these good things. So really appreciate it.
It has been my pleasure. And the timing worked out perfect. I left House General about 10 minutes ago, so it worked out.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kim.
Yes, ma'am. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Great. So I'm going to look at KFR. So we're going to be basically waiting for language and final numbers or something, Emily, what are we?
Yeah,
So we should just go offline at this point and wait for whatever we can get from you guys. And then what we'll do is we'll take a straw poll. Once we have really pretty much probably the language and maybe there's some other spreadsheet, I'll talk to these guys. And we'll do a straw poll vote. Because I think we've now made all the decisions we're supposed to make, unless they say, oops, we forgot one. And then we'll take a straw poll and then we'll be done until